Irena, also capital of that region. Since much of Gethra is different city-states, I think that I won't use the capital ones for like for example, Kedar Port is independent, but I'm not going to make it a capital because it's not nearly as large as these other cities. So I'm going to use this more for the significance of the city than for the actual role of the city. Well, actually, this might be a good time to make an article about a certain bandit group that I know of, a very powerful one, and it will be relevant to the stream tomorrow if we're going to work on that Ith, kind of the Radarin Highland area and everything that's going on there. So let me just fill this in quick, finish off this. And then I'll tell you guys about that. And Xander, fellow, you're welcome to decide if you want to be part of this group that I'm going to talk about or if you want to be part of a different one. So we're going to make it a new thing here. And it is going to be an organization. I forget what we had used before for some of these. Bandit, no. Yes, here we go. I think I better call it a syndicate just because it's large enough. All right, it is called the Crimson Highway. So if we take a look at the map here, zoom in a little bit. So we got the Crimson Highway, which runs all the way from Sanazar up through the jungles to Ith, and then past Ith all the way through Elpan, a crossroads town, and eventually all the way out to the Eye of Maga. Now, the story we're telling right now with, Argos and He Who Basks, and these are characters from this week. This is, 700 years before this map, so I think some of these roads might not exist. It might end in Elpan. However, the Crimson Highway is in a way almost more powerful of its own group than many of these cities because it spans so far. And so the idea is that at one time, way back before the fall of the Orish, this big meteor that impacted, before the Orish, there was an empire that built these roads in the jungle and had enough money to maintain them. But then the meteor fell, and many of the roads got overtaken by the jungle because there wasn't anything powerful enough. However, one group of, they were kind of lawless because there was no empire anymore. They maintained control over parts of the road and maintained the quality of the road so that they could continue to use it. And because of that, they now have become kind of this independent force. In a way, it's almost kind of like the Night's Watch in Game of Thrones, where it's like it's made up of mostly criminals. Does it act entirely like a bandit group? No, because it would be bad for business. I mean, in the case of the Night's Watch, it would be bad for the kingdom. But in the case of this world, essentially the Crimson Highway, they even call themselves the Highwaymen because, they're essentially bandits. And if you're a criminal in a city, you could run away and join them. But basically, the Crimson Highway, they can travel the road for free themselves, and they can go to cities and offer transport. We'll escort you along the road. Well, it only costs a fortune. And so they can really extort these cities because the cities have no other way to get around in some cases. There's rivers, lots of river travel, but you'd have a lot of trade you'd want to send along the Crimson Highway, and it would also be a lot safer than traveling through the jungle. So it's definitely kind of like a lawless organization that has its own internal rules because that's good for business. And so that is the Crimson Highway. But so far in Gethra, there hasn't been a lot of discovery of what's gone on with the Crimson Highway. We know a little bit about their infrastructure, but we don't know like their hierarchy, but we don't know that much about how they've been running. So, spanning thousands of miles of jungle, the Crimson Highway is a major roadway connecting dozens of cities across Radrogar and the Elder Coast. Yeah, so for the Crimson Highway, I think that there would be a lot of that going on, and the higher ups maybe wouldn't necessarily approve of that. There might be plenty of higher ups that do drugs or contraband, are engaged in that kind of thing. But it wouldn't be kind of the company stance would not be. If you think about many companies now, it's like there's plenty of things sometimes happening that shouldn't be according to the company, but they're still doing it. So it's something like that where it's a little bit. Especially like the normal bandits that are around the campfire, they're probably into whatever they want, and no one's going to complain about it. Unless the big boss comes around, and then everyone's on their top behavior. So it's something like that, and I think there's definitely room for that. My only concern, and I'll just mention this to you before you decide about Argos, is the Crimson Highway is a massive organization. So I don't think that he would become its leader, like fully the leader of the Crimson Highway. It could be there's kind of like these little like almost like family units because they're like a brotherhood, right? So there's almost like these little castes that each that if you join the Crimson Highway, you're part of a little tribe of people who are part of the Crimson Highway. So it could be that he became the leader of one of those. He overtook one of those, and then he would have a lot of freedom of how he operates, but he would have some higher ups that could make some demands on him. So if you're imagining him being totally in charge of his own outfit, we can make him a different bandit group. But I find the Crimson Highway has a lot of story potential. It's very interesting because it's so interconnected, and there's a lot of mystery. So it's up to you, totally up to you. If you'd like Argos to be involved with them or just involved with a different group of bandits, so that he could become the big boss himself. Also, I will say, it's Gethra. I'm not making all of the decisions here. So if it's something that's not necessarily that's outside of your character's control, we can leave it up to the dice too. So if you want, we can give you a shot at being the leader of the Crimson Highway itself. But that we'd have to do that incrementally. We would see across the storyline as we continue to figure out what's going on with this revolution and these other things. We would see, well, how far does Argos progress in the Crimson Highway if you decide it. So, yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll add that onto Argos's page then. He fell in with some bandits of the Crimson Highway. Now, I can't remember what their little like caste family units are yet. We're going to look into that on one of the Gethra chapters. So we'll circle back to this and say, we'll say it defeated his boss. So not necessarily the boss of the whole Crimson Highway, but the person who is in charge of Argos. He defeated them, so he's in charge of himself within their structure for now. But yeah, I mean, if throughout our kind of live stream campaign of Gethra, within our live stream of Gethra here, I mean, it could be that over the course of our stories, he does rise through the ranks, and maybe he does eventually become, one of the leaders of the entire faction. But that's not gonna be a choice we can just make. That'll be up to the odds against that that are stacked against you. And you have to decide how much do you want to push your ambition, or just accomplish the goals that you originally set out for. You're asking how did he go about joining the Crimson Highway, or how did he go about defeating his boss? Oops. The original road lengths were constructed by the old Empire of Norris. Yeah, so I think we won't really answer that question yet about how he went about defeating the other leaders. We'll wait and see as world issues put more pressure on the Crimson Highway. How does it respond? How does the Crimson Highway act in this situation? And are there openings where he can gain more power? So we'll get into that when we start diving deeper into these kind of world issues. So I think with like I was kind of saying, for tomorrow night's live stream, my plan is probably going to be to focus more on one of those world issues and see some actual year by year, almost maybe incremental or episodic storytelling of what's going to happen to these characters during this time, and how will the characters cause a change in how that might play out. So tomorrow maybe we'll figure out more if you're up for joining in, Xanderfell, and if you're not, you can always join in another time. We'll kind of go back and see, here's what happened with that world issue. Well, what was Argos doing in the meantime? And we can figure that out. So totally up to you guys when and how you want to figure that out. But I'm just always letting you know what I'll be doing on my streams. So next time I'm hoping to, today we're kind of just doing a little bit of housekeeping, it almost feels like, filling in some of these articles. And then tomorrow we're going to really dive in there. So yeah, I could definitely use some of his assets. And I also, it still says on his page that one of his goals is to get revenge on the people who ousted him. So we can always see how that will play out as well. All right, so the Crimson Highway. It has been expanded and maintained by an independent by an independent faction for centuries since. All right, sorry, let me just fight with my mic cord for a minute. The original road lengths were constructed by the old Empire of Norris. It has been expanded and maintained by an independent faction for centuries since. Viewed by many as by many cities and governments as a lawless bandit outfit, the Crimson Highwaymen have ensured peaceful and profitable use of the highway for much of this time. Yeah, and that's kind of why I wanted to start this page, because if we do have any insight on the Crimson Highway in these next coming kind of world issues and quest events, we want to see what are the rules of the Crimson Highway, because that might be relevant for that. So, viewed by many cities and governments as a lawless bandit outfit, the Crimson Highway have ensured peaceful and profitable use of the highway for much of this time. Travelers of the highway are presented two options to secure passage. Firstly, they may pay an exorbitant fee to the highwaymen, often involving further bribes or pat downs Might even involve some stealing. Of course, the higher ups of the Crimson Highway don't want the Highwaymen acting, you know, um, like criminals towards their paying customers. But sometimes it's going to happen because these are all misfits who have joined up for this highway to make it to run. Or they may work to pay that fee. Work on the highway is brutal labor, clearing the jungle and laying cobblestone to maintain the road. Fortunately for the highwaymen, there are always desperate people in need of transport. All right, and then let's add in some history, a history section. This will be yeah, that's true. I wonder. I think he would have only a few contacts with the Crimson Highway before leaving the city, because you did mention he had some illicit bargains and stuff like that. I think that might be more likely stuff within his city. And then when he left, these would be the people that he would fall in with after he left would be not spending a lot of time in the cities because they're always patrolling the road and making sure it is cared for one way or another. Actually, we'll come back to the history section for now. Let's say organization as a little section, and then we got to look up again. Let me do some research on my side for a second. Save you guys the time of watching me fight with a search window here. Heirloom 81 is where we want to look. Heirloom is the longest running character, just in case you guys were curious. I don't really decide how long the storylines will last. Rather, I continue the storylines until there's a believable confusion or conclusion. Sorry. So for the world of Gethra, what we do here live on the stream, we'll just be exploring everything within a character's life. For our Lives of Gethra, what I've done is, if a character dies, well, that's one conclusion to their storyline. If a character gets everything that they were trying to get, that's another conclusion. So there's a sad ending and a happy ending, right? And so you have a bit of variety in how that's going to play out with different scenarios for the characters. So for Heirloom storyline, he's still seeking enlightenment on the path, and has gotten to some very interesting places. But he has an encounter with the Crimson Highway here, so they meet a man named Ellis, who's a commander of a group of highwaymen. Let's just see here. Where does he introduce himself? Cool, good to know. I'm not really using alignment so far. I really like the idea that characters might act differently in different situations, and so I don't really see that. I mean, by all means, if you guys want to use the alignments to get an idea for your own character or to help you stay in that kind of focus, that's great. But yeah, I don't like to kind of assert one or the other, All right, I will enjoy the company. I'm Ellis of the Blood Sky, and these are my men. So let's figure out what is the Blood Sky. Oh, he only says that once. The Crimson Highway is run by a brotherhood. We forsake our own family to join it, though most of us never knew a family we might regret losing. Our ranks are divided into families. This knits our loyalties tighter, in theory, but also makes the distinctions between ranks clearer. And he says there's a lot of infighting, as the families kind of sometimes vie for power, but everyone kind of knows where they might be on that spectrum. Yeah, that's a good way to do it to Xanderfell. Oh, there's also the Blood Sun. I see. Yeah, so it's kind of like a caste system. There's like whether you're part of the lower, upper, or highest kind of echelon. The Stronghold of the Sun is where they are ruled from. So let's add some of this back over here. The headquarters of the Crimson Highwaymen is the Stronghold of the Sun, though its location is a closely guarded secret, even within the organization. Only select members of the higher families are allowed to access or know of its location. So it's not even on the map. So let me close that out. All right, and we also learned that there's the different families organized as a brotherhood. Candidates joining the Highwaymen forsake their own family and are considered bound by blood to the Crimson Highway. The highest family slash order or caste is the Blood Sun, whose leaders run the entire organization. Below the Blood Sun is the Blood Sky. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Enderfell. I totally get that system. I just don't really have a place for alignment on the wiki here that I think would be necessary, or But for different, like if if you're playing a game with your local group, by all means, that's a great way to do it. And you can definitely come up with some cool. I mean, even just in general for role-playing games, having a known identity and a presented identity is very that's a really good way to develop characters for sure. So, yeah, very kind of clever way to do it. Ah, yes, and this guy has actually been to the Stronghold of the Sun, but he was led there blindfolded for days. All right, so we didn't touch on what the lower orders of the lower castes are. So we have some freedom there. The complete ranking of castes is as follows. Yeah, that's definitely makes sense, Anderfell. So we got blood, sun. Do I need to add a separate list item? Let's see here. Let's just see what it looks like if we do it this way. Blood, sky. It gave it a big space. Maybe we keep this, but add in more of these. Yeah, that looks a little better. All right, so I'm not sure exactly how many there should be here, so let's actually put that to the test. Let's see, where would this be? What's going on? Add page. Crimson Highway. I really should come up with a better name for this tab than what's going on. This is kind of where I've done randomizers for different kind of like organizations, the need to know information that you would only know if you were part of them. So how many castes exist within the Crimson Highway? And we're going to roll, let's see, up to 7. It's a nice number. And I guess there wouldn't be only one. We already know that there's at least 2, so let's do like 3 to 7. And there you are, 3, 7. Okay, so we're gonna have to come up with some here. Let's see here. The old roots family will be though more of a punitive group. So if you're part of the old roots, you're almost like it's almost like you know, you're trying to re-earn your respect within the Crimson Highway, or atone for crossing leadership somehow. The basic low-level caste.